A very good afternoon, dear students, and welcome to Agrawal Vidya Vihar English Medium College Digital Classroom. I, Professor Shaurya Shah, welcome all of you to the lecture of Advanced Accounting and Auditing Paper 6. Dear students, we solved around 6 to 7 short sums in the last lecture. I suppose now everyone is clear with the formulas of ratio analysis. Fine. Moving ahead, today we'll be solving two university short sums of VNSU 2017 and one long sum of VNSU 2017. I have already provided the sums in the Google Classroom, so you can see the questions from there, and also I'll be showing you the question here. Simultaneously we will be solving the sums. I suppose it is clear to each and every student. Fine. Now, starting with today's terms, dear students, the very first among that short sum is your finding out the rate of return on capital employed and rate of return on equity share capital from the information given below, right? So what is being given in the information, first of all, understanding the question is very important, students, right? So what is being given in the question? The very first thing you have been given is net profit after deducting interest and tax. You have been given is 2,25,000. Rate of tax is given 60%. Equity share capital is given 10 lakh. 12% debentures is given 6 lakh. And 10% preference share capital is given 8 lakh. And again retained earnings 3 lakh 50 and fictitious assets 1 lakh rupees, right? What you need to find out is find out the rate of return on capital employed and rate of return on equity share capital. So first of all, students, will be starting with that part. Now, if I want to start with the return on investment, that is return on capital, right? What I need is, I need the formula, that is profit before interest and tax divided by total capital invested. Is it correct? Fine. So profit before interest and tax, if I want to start, what I need to do, I need to calculate it from your profit after tax. So we'll be starting, students. How can I find profit after tax? We will start with your again profit after tax, then we will go reverse. So profit after tax is given to me in the question, that is rupees 2,25,000. This is after your 60% tax rate. After 60% tax rate. So can I say this is if it is 60%, right? So this is remaining 40%. So what I'll do is, first of all, I will add tax in it, the 60% which we have deducted. So you have to put in equation, if 40 is 2,25,000, how much your 60 will be, right? So when you will calculate if 40 is 2,25,000, how much 60 will be, your answer, dear students, will come to 3,37,500. That is my tax amount, right? Is it clear? Fine. Again, now this is, we need is your profit before interest and tax. So in that tax amount, again we will add the amount of interest also. Adding the amount of interest, as you can see in your questions also, there is only one security called 12% debentures, and that is 6 lakh. So 12% into 6 lakh gives me the interest of 72,000 rupees. This is interest on debenture, I can say. So what I'll do is, I will total up all those things. So I will get the answer of 6,34,500. This is my PBIT, that is profit before interest and tax, PBIT, right? So what we needed for the question is PBIT. Now we can put up in the formula. What is the first thing we need? Return on capital. So first thing, rate of return on capital is equals to, remember students, writing the formula is very much important, is equals to PBIT divided by capital invested, PBIT divided by capital investment into 100, right? So this is my formula. I'll use, what is the PBIT? We found it out, 6,34,500. What is your capital invested, students? Now what you will include in capital investment here is, the very first thing is equity share capital that you will add. Then you will also add in that preference share capital, students, right? Capital investment means the total borrowings plus the capital which you have invested in your business, fine? So what is the equity capital? 10 lakh. You will add preference share in that, means 18 lakh. Plus you will add debentures also in that, 6 lakh. So 18 lakh plus 6 lakh gives me 24 lakh. Plus retained earnings 3,50,000. So it will give me 27,50,000. But I have been also given fictitious assets in that, right? So what I'll do is add up all those four and I will deduct fictitious assets from that, right? So again 10 lakh plus 6 lakh, 16 lakh plus 8 lakh, 24 lakh plus 350 is my 27,50,000 minus 1 lakh gives me the figure of capital invested, right? So that I come to know that it is 26,50,000 rupees. 2750 minus 1 lakh, 27,50,000 into 100. So when I solve this, I will get the answer of 23.95%. That is my first answer, students, right? So 23.94% is asked in your sum, that is rate of return on capital. Rate of return on capital. I suppose it is clear to every student. The second thing which is they have asked is your return on equity share capital. Return on equity share capital. Now dear students, return on equity share capital is equals to, you must be knowing the formula, net profit after tax minus preference dividend. Why? Because only the term equity share capital is there, and equity share capital means the profit which goes to your equity only, and upon you will be taking equity shares into 100. So what is my net profit after tax? We started with this only, 2,25,000 minus preference dividend. It is 10% preference share capital, as you can see in the question, that is 8 lakh. So 8 lakh into 10% dividend is equals to 80,000. So 2,25,000 minus 80,000 divided by equity share capital. Equity share capital is 10 lakh. Only equity share capital into 100. So dear students, you will be getting the answer of 14.5%. That is my again final answer which is asked in the sum. I suppose it is clear to each and every student. Fine. So two answers that were asked in the sum, that is again rate of return on equity capital, and again the second is rate of return on total capital invested. I suppose it is clear to every student. Fine. Moving on, students. You can note it down if you have not yet completed. I'll give you 5 seconds to complete your sum. Fine. I suppose now everyone must have completed the sum. Moving on to the next sum, that is your question number 8. Again VNSGU 2017 March April, right? So when we will start with the sum, before that few information. What is the sum all about? You have to find out the gross profit. You have to find out the operating expenses from the following. What is being given in the sum? Only 4 particulars are given, students. The very first is your stock turnover ratio. The second is your average stock. The third is your cost of goods sold, but it is given in percentage. Why? Because both of these things are given in the sum. And the last is your net profit after deducting the 50% tax, that is 1,75,000, right? So what we'll do is we will calculate one by one what is the being asked in the sum. So find out the GP first of all, right? So from where I can find out the GP? First of all, if these two information are given, so from this two information I need to find out any one missing information. So let us start, students, from what is given. So the very first thing I will find out is the formula of stock turnover ratio. What is the formula of stock turnover ratio? STR is equals to cost of goods sold upon average stock. Cost of goods sold upon average stock. What is my COGS? I don't know. Stock turnover ratio is 8 times. COGS, I'll put up same COGS upon average stock, students. I have been given average stock in the sum. So what I'll take is 90,000. So I'll get the answer of COGS is equals to 90,000 into 8. That gives me 7,20,000. That is my first answer which I have got, which is not asked in the sum, but it will be helpful to find out the answers which are there in the sum, right? So we have got COGS 7,20,000. Now I have been given the percentage of COGS, students, right? That is 60%. So I can compare in the next step that if COGS 60% is equals to 7,20,000. If 60% is 7,20,000, as you all must be knowing, what is your gross profit? Your gross profit is always sales minus COGS. So that gives you GP. So if my COGS is 60%, I assume sales is 100%. So my GP will be 100 minus 60%, that is 40%. So if 60 is 720, how much 40 will be? So that will give me the answer of gross profit, that is 4,80,000 rupees. That is your first answer, students, which is asked in the sum. GP will be 4,80,000 rupees. Is it clear? Fine. Now moving on to the next part of the sum, which is asked. What is being asked? Operating expenses. Now what is operating expenses, dear students? It is as simple. It is your first you will get sales minus cost of goods sold, you will get GP. In that GP you deduct the net profit, that will give you the operating expenses, right? So net profit, which net profit? Net profit before tax, right? So here if you see, when I find out net profit is given after tax. So if I want net profit before tax, what I'll do is I will add up 50%. As the tax rate is 50%, 1,75,000 plus 1,75,000 gives me 3,50,000. That is my net profit before tax. Now the only thing I need to do is to put up in the formula. Now GP minus NP before tax is equals to operating expenses that is GP we found out 4,80,000 rupees minus your net profit before tax 3,50,000. So what is the answer, dear students, of operating expenses? That is 1,30,000 rupees. I hope everyone must have got this answer. 1,30,000 rupees is the answer of operating expenses, which is asked in the sum. I suppose it is clear to everyone. So in short sums particularly, dear students, you will be getting very much less time, less than 3 to 4 minutes. If you are clear with the concepts, if you are clear with the formula, it will be very easy for you people to study and to solve the short sums. I hope everyone is clear with this part. No doubts in this. You need to be very thorough with the formula, students, then you can solve it very quickly. Fine. Now moving on to the next sum of yours, right? I have already given you the long sum also for that particularly. So we will be starting with the next sum, that is your long sum VNSGU 2017. That is your question number 9 of your sums which I have given to you, right? Question number 9. As you can see, what is being asked, 7 things are being asked, students. One by one, we'll be start solving it. Fine. In that, the very first thing, first we will discuss the sum, then we will start with the actual sum solving. The very first thing, students, given here is your cost of goods sold. As you can see in the question, cost of goods sold is given 40 lakh. Next is being given net profit after tax deducted at 50%. So immediately your mind should start working that if it is given net profit after tax 50%, so before tax it should be double. That is 375 plus 375, that means 7,50,000. Your net profit after tax should be there. Before tax should be there. Sorry. Fine. Equity share capital is 20 lakh. 10% preference share capital is 8 lakh. So dividend will be 80,000. 12% debentures 8 lakh. So you have to calculate the interest on 12% debentures. 10% long term loan on 2 lakh. Retained earnings, fixed assets, current assets, GP is given and debenture discount is given. Mind well, students, if GP and cost of goods sold is given, you can easily find out the sales out of it. Fine. So we will see that part. Debenture discount, it is a fictitious asset is given, right? So whenever we'll find out any ratio, you deduct it from the actual real assets. Is it clear? What is being asked? GP ratio is asked, operating ratio is asked, interest expenses ratio, proprietary ratio, net profit ratio, and then you are having gearing ratio and long term funds to fixed assets ratio. I hope everyone is clear with that part. Fine. So quickly we'll be starting with that, students. The very first they have asked is your GP ratio. I suppose everyone must have remembered the formula so far. I have provided all the notes in Google Classroom so that you can solve it. Fine. So very first thing is your GP ratio. What is GP ratio, students? GP ratio is your gross profit upon sales into 100. So very first thing, GP ratio is equals to gross profit upon sales into 100. Gross profit upon sales into 100. Now here, students, gross profit is already given in the sum. You can find out what is gross profit. It is 10 lakh. Now sales is equals to, as I told you, okay, sales is not given in the question, but from the two information COGS and GP, you can find it out. So what I'll do is COGS plus GP, that is 40 lakh, that is LK I am writing, plus 10 lakh into 100. So what you get is 10 lakh divided by 50 lakh into 100. So what is my answer for GP, students? My answer for GP will be 20%. So the very first answer which is asked in the question, that is your 20% is my gross profit ratio, right? What I'll do is I'll put up in the box. Presentation is also very much important in your exam, students, that we will see afterwards, right? So this is your 20% is your GP. The very first thing we have solved out. Second thing which is asked in your sum is your operating ratio, right? So operating ratio, just now only we saw the formula. What is operating ratio, students? Operating ratio formula is cost of goods sold plus operating expenses. What is the formula? Again, I'll write it down. Operating ratio is equals to cost of goods sold plus operating expenses upon sales into 100. Is it clear? So we are having the answer of cost of goods sold, students. That is my how much? Cost of goods sold is 40 lakh. Am I knowing the operating expenses? Yes or no? I am not knowing the operating expenses, but in the previous sum only we found it out, students, that what is my operating ratio, how could I find the operating expenses. So in that what we did is net profit before tax minus GP. So what is my net profit before tax? 375 into 2, that is 7,50,000 minus gross profit. So what is my gross profit? 10 lakh. So here it will not be negative, but we are taking it in a positive way because it is always your GP minus NPBT. I have written it vice versa, but you can understand that this is my operating expenses. So what I'll do is I found it out operating expenses. So 40 lakh plus operating expenses is 2,50,000 divided by sales. Sales is my 50 lakh. It remains the same what we found out in the previous step. So I will get the answer of 85% when I solve this, right? So what is my operating ratio? My operating ratio is 85%. I suppose it is clear to each and every student. Fine. So again, you need to first write down the formula, students. So from the formula you can come to know which particulars are given in the sum and which are missing. Fine. Okay. First two things we have found out gross profit ratio. Remember, students, if it is a 14 mark sum, each ratio carries the marks of 2, right? So 2 marks you are getting it out of 14. We have solved 4. Now operating ratio is done. Next is your interest expense ratio, right? What is interest expense ratio? What is the formula for that, students? I can write down interest expense ratio is equals to interest upon sales, right? What interest I am paying and what is my total sales into 100. So what I'll get is total interest, students. If you can see in the sum, once again, only two fixed interest bearing securities are given. One is your debentures and the second is your long term loans, right? So interest on debentures 12% on 8 lakh. If you calculate 12% on 8 lakh, you will get the answer of interest, that is equals to 96,000, right? 12% on 8 lakh. So I will get the answer of 96,000 plus 10% long-term loan on 2 lakh. So the interest will be 20,000 rupees divided by sales. Sales we know, we have found it out, 50 lakh into 100. So we'll get the answer, students, of expense ratio, that is interest expense ratio is equals to interest expense ratio is equals to, you can find it out. What is the answer for interest expense ratio, students? What is the answer for that, students? It is 23 23.2%, I suppose, right? So I'll write down 23.2%. Also solving along with you students, so quickly you can do it. 23.2%, right? So the third we have found out interest expense ratio. Now the next you need to find out is your proprietary ratio, right? Now what is proprietary ratio, students? Proprietary ratio related to the funds of the owner, that is proprietor's fund, right? So I suppose you all must be remembering the formula. Proprietary ratio is equals to owner's fund. What is my owner's fund? Divided by total real asset. Owner's fund divided by total real asset, right? Now here finding out owner's fund is very much important, students. What is my owner's fund? Now owner's fund here, students, include your, first of all, equity capital. What is my equity capital? Equity capital is rupees 20 lakh. Owner's fund. You can remember your balance sheet. In that we had owner's fund, we had long-term borrowings, then we had various kinds of reserves and surplus, then we had fictitious asset, right? So what is my owner's fund? Very quickly, if I write down in the formula, I will write down equity plus preference plus retained earnings minus fictitious assets divided by total real assets. Here students, total real assets means fixed assets plus current assets. Fixed assets plus current assets, right? So what do you mean by fixed assets plus current assets? That is your total real assets. So if I put up in the formula, that is 10 lakh my equity share capital, 20 lakh my equity share capital, sorry, plus 8 lakh preference share capital equals to 28 lakh, plus retained earnings 8 lakh gives me the answer of 36 lakh, right? From that I deduct the debenture discount. So my answer here comes to 35 lakh 60,000 rupees. So I'll write down in the numerator 35 lakh 60,000 rupees. Denominator, fixed assets are 32 lakh, current assets are 22 lakh, right? So my total comes to 54 lakh. So my total comes to 54 lakh into 100, right? So when I'll solve this again, I'll get the answer of 65.93%. 65.93%. That is my proprietary ratio. I suppose it is clear to each and everyone. So what we have done is, students, we have calculated GP ratio, we have calculated your operating ratio, we have also calculated your interest expense ratio, and we have calculated the proprietary ratio, right? So half of your sum is completed. The next part will be starting. What is asked next? Next is your net profit ratio, students, right? What is your net profit ratio? Net profit ratio, as you must be knowing the formula, it is your net profit after tax upon sales into 100. So we'll be starting with the net profit ratio, students. Number 5. Net profit ratio is equals to net profit after tax upon sales into 100. So net profit after tax, if you can see, is 3,75,000. In the previous two equations only we found it out. Sales I know is 50 lakh. So what you can do, students, is before starting the sum, you can see the formulas and you can find out the missing articles which are there. For example, sales is there, net profit after tax is there, so that you can easily calculate the sum. Fine. So in 200, what I'll get as answer is net profit ratio is equals to 7.5%. Net profit ratio is equals to 7.5%, right? I suppose it is clear to everyone. Fine. It was a easy ratio, students. Now the next thing they have asked is, what has been asked next is your gearing ratio. Again, a very important ratio from your examination point of view. Every time it is asked, gearing ratio. What do you mean by gearing ratio, students? You must be knowing the formula. It is your fixed interest bearing securities divided by equity capital, right? So what we will take here is fixed interest bearing and dividend bearing. That is your first of all preference capital, the interest or dividend which we are paying outside apart from equity, plus debenture plus loan upon equity capital, right? So what is my answer? Preference dividend, I can found out 10% on 8 lakh gives me 80,000 plus 12% on 8 lakh gives me how much? What is my, again we can say debenture. Fine. So here, students, gearing ratio, fixed interest bearing securities, right? You have to take the entire amount, so that is 10% preference share capital gives me the amount of 8 lakh, debentures gives me the amount of 8 lakh, plus loan is how much? That is your 10% long term loans, that is 2 lakh, divided by equity capital. Equity capital is how much, students? It is 20 lakh. So when I solve this, my answer comes to 0.9, or I can say 90%, right? It may be 0.9. Gearing ratio can be written in percentage also, can be written in this points also. So if I multiply it by 100, my answer will become 90%. So what does it suggest, students? That fixed interest bearing securities are 90% compared to the owner's fund of equity. I suppose it is clear to every student. And the last one which is asked in your exam, that is long-term funds to fixed assets ratio. What is my long-term funds to fixed assets ratio? Long-term funds to fixed assets ratio. Long-term funds to fixed asset ratio is equals to, what I'll do is I will take the long-term funds, right? What is my long-term funds? First of all, I'll write down the fixed assets so that you don't get confused. 32 lakh is my fixed assets. 32 lakh is my fixed assets, students, right? What is the long-term funds? You can find it out. I'll give you 10 seconds to think. What is my long-term funds? You can take. Yes, students, I hope you must have found it out the answer. Fine. You can just find it out. Long-term funds to fixed assets ratio. Long-term funds, right? So what is my long-term funds, students? Here long-term funds is first of all your equity capital plus preference capital plus debentures plus your long-term loan, right? Plus retained earnings. So you will be having this answers, right? So when I do the total of it, you will be getting 20 lakh plus 8 lakh, 28 lakh plus 8 lakh, 36 lakh plus 2 lakh, 38 lakh plus 8 lakh, that is 46 lakhs, right? So 46 lakhs, you are getting the answer. From the 46 lakhs, right, you will write down here 46 lakhs. You will write down 46 lakhs. But from this 46 lakh students, many a times students ask the question whether to again deduct the debenture discount from it or not, right? So again we will see whether to deduct the debenture discount or not. But here, as we saw in proprietary ratio, we deducted the again from owner's fund. But here, as we are taking only long-term fund students, right? So no need to deduct the debentures fund because we are not calculating owner's fund. They are also included in long terms also, right? So what we'll do is directly we will take the amount of long-term funds, that is equity, preference, debentures, long-term loan and retained earnings, right? So what I'll get it as answer is 1.43 times, and if I multiply it by 100, but again whenever it is long-term funds to fixed asset ratio, avoid multiplying it by 100 students, right? So we'll not multiply it by 100, we will put up in the times only. So what is my answer? Long-term funds to 1.3, that is fixed asset ratio 1.43 times. What does it suggest? That my long-term funds are 1.43 times compared to my fixed asset students, right? So I suppose each and everyone is clear with today's part, every sum, right? Do practice it one more time, students. You are having the question with you. Try to solve it on your own. Remember the formulas, and then we will continue from the next lecture from more university sums, right? This was your VNSGU paper 2017. We have solved two short sums and a long sum. I suppose the sums of the last lecture were also clear to you. Any doubts, any queries, you can put up in Google Classroom. We are there to help you out. Fine. So I hope everyone is clear with today's part. We'll meet you soon in the next lecture, students. Take care. This is Professor Shaurya Shah teaching you Advanced Accounting and Auditing Paper 6 TY BCom Semester 5. Thank you everyone for your attention. Take care. Have a good day ahead.